Welcome to day 5, training an untouched Barb stallion. So day 5 was a really long, intense training day. I actually started with an hour-long session in the morning and then did an additional hour-long session in the afternoon because I really wanted to push him a little bit and be able to get a halter on. So we also started introducing some new items for him. So I have just kind of an old ragged tarp here that I put out for him to start looking at while I was mucking. There's a rail out, and then there's also a pallet that's out of view of the video. But by introducing those new items to him, it starts to help build that confidence and that curiosity and also his trust in me. So this was a really important day for us. This was a really big step. I did break this into 2 parts just because it is such a long training day. So this is part 1, and then I will also get up part 2 where I actually get the halter on him for the first time. I wanted to give him a few minutes to just start to investigate these new items on his own without any pressure. And it was great to see that he was willing to go up and sniff the tarp. He actually walked over the rail once on his own before we actually started to move his feet and ask him to interact with these objects. I always close this gate, which blocks off the stall he was staying in, just so that he doesn't try to dodge into there while we're working. Because it's a very small confined space, and once you have their energy moving, I didn't want one to get him too high pressure to where he's going to try to escape and flee, but I also don't want him to become more reactive. I don't want to scare him more than I have to, and it was just kind of planning out that it would not be a good idea if he just dodged in there to try to escape and then to try to have to go in and ask him to come out. So each time we would train, I would just close it off while we were working and then open it back up afterwards. While he was getting better about being approached, every day it was a little bit of a process to get back to where we were, where he was comfortable, where I could just walk up and pet him. So again, we kind of evaluate each day when we're starting, how much progress have we had, how much have we retained from our previous sessions. And we're getting better, but definitely not to the point where I can just walk up at a normal pace and pet him without having him react. I'm going to start by just asking him to move his feet a bit. I'm not so worried if he actually goes over the objects I have out at this point in time. I just want his feet moving, having him look at the objects from different directions, and getting more comfortable moving around with those things in his environment. don't want to apply too much pressure at this point, just enough to kind of encourage and nudge him to go over the object. But I do want him to investigate it. I don't want him to feel rushed, or he's more likely to become more reactive and then try to escape the situation rather than think through it and accept it. There's a lot of trying to gauge exactly where the horse is at with these things and how much can you ask. Are they really worried about it, where you're going to be pushing too much, or do they just need a little nudge to encourage them to go over? So it's kind of a fine line between those points when you decide it's ready to apply that extra pressure. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you just keep going back and working at it. We've done hundreds of approach and retreats at this point. It does take a lot of repetition to be able to work up to where you can just walk up and touch him without having him react. But we have to continue to work on that and then start to add variability and speed and energy to get him used to all those situations and be able to accept that. So the hope is with doing this repeatedly is that we then one day get to a point where I can approach normally and he doesn't react to that because he knows it doesn't mean anything and he's no longer afraid of me. He's comfortable with me being in his space because we've put all this time in to do this work at the beginning here. So eventually we'll work up to approaching him full speed. Sometimes you add in, different arm movements or unexpected things just so they get used to the fact that if you're doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to react to it, that they should be calm while you're approaching no matter what the situation is. had not been able to touch his head at all up to this point. So this was the first time that I actually was able to rub his cheek a little bit and have him not move away. I'm just trying to slowly get him used to the string on the stick here because we haven't done any real string work with this yet. And the next step is to start being able to throw that string over his back, get him used to that moving around. But I felt like he would be a bit too reactive if I just tried to go to that next step without kind of breaking it down for him. So I'm just trying to introduce a little bit of that string movement, get him used to that without having to actually throw it over him yet, but we will progress to that point soon. So here I'm actually going to put that string over his side for the first time, and you'll see how he's unsure about that. But I'm going to stay with him as he moved. He's not panicking, he's just unsure about it. So I'm just going to try to stay with him and then take it off once he stops. One of the things you have to be careful about when you start to put something on the other side of the horse is that they can come towards you. So you have to be prepared for that reaction, that they might try to move into you when you start to throw something on the other side. A little reaction there, but actually quite good for what I was expecting that to be. I wanted to give him a big reward for that try, but also we've got a garbage truck that's picking up right at this point, so I didn't want to pair pushing more with that truck in case he reacted to the noises from it. I'm a little amazed that he didn't react to some of those noises there, but I'm happy with that. I live on a fairly rural property, so we don't get much for traffic, but it seemed that after I brought him home, between the crows, the neighbor doing work on the property with heavy machinery, and the extra heavy trucks that we were having come down the road, he got a pretty good introduction to loud noises right off the bat. And you'll see here that while he's okay with the string across his back, you get towards that rear and he's uncomfortable with it there. So it just helps identify areas that we've got to work on and work up to for him to get used to all these different things that he's going to have to accept through his life. So he's done really well with everything. He's never tried to, kick out at me, turn his butt to me, act aggressive towards me or anything like that. But definitely, it's something that you have to watch out for because you don't know how they're going to react, and you have to stay in a safe spot so that if they do react, you're not in that strike zone. I'm going to start to introduce the halter and lead rope to him now. I want to get him desensitized to that before I ever try to put it on him. The stick and string work has kind of been a precursor to that, to start getting him used to objects being on him. But now I have to do it all over with this particular object because everything is different to them. So it doesn't necessarily translate from one object to the next.
We not do corners? So tense all the time. Job. Do you not do corners? I don't like corners.
I'm just starting to test out how he is with pressure. Usually they pull away from pressure instead of coming into it. And so I'm trying to see how sensitive he is and can I get him to release towards me. So every time he even makes the slightest movement towards me, I want to reward that and release the pressure on the lead rope, because that's going to set us up for leading once I do have a lead rope on him. I know there's a lot of trainers out there that will try to speed things along by roping them, and then you kind of get into a fight for pressure where you apply pressure, you don't release it until they give into it, but it's a big fight because they're terrified of having this rope thrown over their head and then having this pressure introduced very rapidly to them. I like a slower, gentler approach to that so we can avoid that kind of fight and that kind of fear. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to take my time with introducing a lead rope, introducing leading, introducing pressure to him, because I really truly believe that you end up with a better partnership if you don't have to make the horse more afraid than necessary. And I was okay putting the extra time in to do these steps rather than trying to rush it and get results faster.